So, here's the deal, chat. I'm going to go over Hisui, her intricacies, her kit, all the little things that you can do with this character. I'm going to go over her combos, her itemizations, what's good on her, what's not, explain the meta build a bit as well. Okay, so Hisui. This character is considered to be a melee brawler, not a diver. If you dive on this character, the chances of you losing will be a lot higher than you just considering being a brawler. Your only dive ability is your W2 ability. Hisui is a character where you really need to know your damage, you really need to know your sustain. That's where the skill ceiling of this character comes from. You need to really know how to use your Ws efficiently. You need to know what situation to use your Ws. So, we're gonna go over her abilities real quick. Her Q, she strikes twice, once in a circle, once in a line. When you hit this, you gain a stack for your W. Or W, we're gonna go over later because there's 3 different abilities on one skill. Her E, Hisui dashes back, and does a curve dash around and then finish with a slash around at the end. This ability is not really a good movement ability. The reason is because it's very short. See, if we look at it, because she dashes at the back, you don't actually go very far from where you're starting. You're only going like, what, 2 to 3 meters? Now, the way that this ability does become a good movement skill is if you're standing behind a wall. Because what that does is that it makes it so Hisui doesn't dash back. Basically, the mobility skill goes like double range. So that's her E. Her R, when you press R, you pull out your Monohaji Sao. Every time you do damage, you will do extra damage. It's going to be 1 instance of damage every ability cast and every auto, except for your W3, which is 2 instances. 1 for your 1,000 cuts, and the second comes out after the final cut at the end. And then her second R2, she slashes 3 times, 2 times in a cone like this, which both hit in the cone. By the way, both hit in the cone. They don't hit in separate sections. They hit in the whole half moon. And then the final slash in the middle. The final slash is really good because it does the target's max HP, and if they fall below a certain threshold, they get executed. So that's Hisui basic abilities, and now her passive. Basically, whenever you cast a skill, you gain a sword's memory, which enhances your basic attack, which when you use it, you gain movement speed for a bit, and your cooldowns decrease. What this does is that this makes Hisui basically an auto-weaver, because you want to be auto-weaving between every single ability, so you get the max value of a cooldown of your abilities, since you cannot build cooldown reduction on this character. Since the only ability that actually benefits from cooldown reduction is your ultimate, which we don't really care about. So her W, she has 3 types of abilities, depending on the amount of stacks her have. Her first W strikes in a cone. Her first cut turns into a shield, and then her second cut does percent max HP. The more dummies that are down, the more shielding that she gets on her W1. This only applies to test subjects. If you have animals, if you strike multiple animals with it, it only counts for 1 shield. Also, I got a fucking RNG. What did I get? I got a meteorite. Cool. So that's Hisui W1. Hisui W2, basically, she goes in a straight line, and whoever she hits at the end of her W2, she teleports behind. If she doesn't hit anybody behind it, she doesn't go anywhere. This is your main diving tool. This is how you get onto the backline. If you're a backline player, this is where you are making sure what you're watching out for, basically. When you see Hisui with 2 bars, be very careful of this, because if you get hit by this, you will lose most likely like 80% of your HP. Like 50 to like 80%, depending if she has false with an ultimate up. The other thing is that when you're in W2 as Hisui, this is when you're most vulnerable, because you do not have your defensive W1 or W3 right now until you hit another skill. W2 is mainly for diving, and it has no defensives, and if you hit a backline player, then it's worth it. So keep in mind that if you're a backline player and you're fighting against Hisui, W2 is when you're going to be the most threatened by her, but it's also her most vulnerable state, because she has no defenses other than her parry. All right, W3. Everybody knows this fucking skill. It's the fucking Virgil triple cuts into the final slash, which she heals a fuck ton of. Unless you have Hyoka, which she heals like half of. So this ability is actually, can be really good in certain situations, but only in certain specific situations. One, people that you're cutting from are immobile players. People that have wasted their mobility, people that have no mobility or have wasted their flash. This ability is really good because they don't have like any way of escaping with it. What I really like to pair it with is your Q. So if you Q into W3, the reason why Q into W3 is so good is because her second hit slows people for 1 second by 30%. So people will most likely get hit more. But E is also good at the end as well, because what you can do is that you can E behind him like this, and then kind of like that. Forces them to walk through you or to go towards your team. So E is also a good consideration, but you'll most likely be doing Q into W3 because you get the slow. And you're in a better position to like E out if you need to. You only want a W3 in if you know you're going to kill and you're going to win the fight with it. If you don't know you're going to win the fight with it, I recommend doing Q into W3. So let's go over her ability prioritization on what you level first. So when you're leveling Hisui, your power spike is level 9 because the first ability that you max is your passive. You put 1 point into Q and then the rest into W. Her passive basically increases the cooldown reduction and the movement speed of your auto attacks every time you gain the enhanced passive. This makes it so you only need to auto attack twice to fully reset your Q and 3 times to where you can fully reset your E. And the reason it's like that is because your Q is on a very short cooldown, about 4 points, about 4 seconds. This cooldown goes down by the amount of attack speed that you have, by the way. So with that said, your infinite combo is basically Q, auto, W, auto, Q, auto, W, auto, Q, auto, W, auto. That's your infinite combo. That's your infinite loop. And this is why Hisui is considered a melee brawler rather than a diver. Because she can output so much damage and have so much shielding by just sticking onto one character. Let's go through W3 combo without ultimate. So I did say that 2 instances of passive will fully reset Q and 3 instances of passive will fully reset E. So what's really interesting is that parry almost counts as a full instance of passive on your Q. So what the combo is that you E in, auto Q, auto parry, auto Q, and then W3. That's like the more reliable way of getting your W3 online without using ultimate. What a lot of Hisuis like to do though is that they like to E into R, auto Q, alt into W3. That's what a lot of Hisuis like to do. A lot of the times I don't really use R2 unless I get as many people into the R2 as possible. But if I only have one person in my ultimate, then it's a lot more DPS if you're just doing the infinite combo while you're in ultimate form, because you get more instances of that R1 damage while you're doing the infinite loop combo. Your first cast of your R, you can use it in the middle of any animation. That could be your basic attack, that could be any skill possible, and that could be even through your parry. So when you're pressing R1, don't press it raw. Do not press this shit raw. Do it while you're auto attacking like that. It's a tighter animation, but you can do it. See how I like auto attack and then I use my ultimate like that? Yeah. So basically hide your R1 into like any animation so you don't get like the 2-frame animation of your R1. What this also means, you can hide it into W3. So if you W3 and then press R, they will not see the circle until you get out of W3, and which you could do for a surprise ultimate at the end of your W3, which can surprise a lot of players. Some characters that Hisuis do really bad in are a lot of AD carries, such as Razi or Subame, or even William when has his ultimate down, because Hisui does really bad into range DPS. It's also even worse when she can't catch the range DPS, right? So if Hisui is against basically a double AD carry, Hisui can't really tank the double ADCs. She'll just die immediately. The only time that she can really tank them is during the early game when they don't have a lot of items. But during the late game when they have a lot of items, like then Hisui will just pop. If she solo dives. I should clarify, if she solo dives. But that's also just a lot of like melee bruisers weaknesses, is just a lot of range DPS if you can't kill them immediately. So that's basically Hisui in a nutshell. This is how I effectively play her. So itemization. What are Hisui's best items and what do you get first? So when it comes to item prioritization on Hisui, I always want to go for Audai first. The reason why Audai is so good on Hisui, especially if you're running Pulse Oath, is because the deferral passive of this item makes it so you're a lot more tankier than other characters. For those of you who don't know what deferral does, 20% of the damage you take from enemy characters is gradually applied over 3 seconds. So if you're from League of Legends, basically this is the death's dance of the game, where basically 20% of all damage that you take will be applied as a dot effect. Now the reason why that's so good is because Hisui has a lot of shielding and healing in her kit. So when you have Audai, inevitably, when you press W1, instead of applying it directly to your health bar, it will go through the shield first. And since you have that infinite loop combo where you're constantly pressing Q and W1, you're constantly applying that shield. Keep in note that your W1 shield does not actually refresh until it is fully expired or until it is broken. So when you're W1ing, keep in mind that if you have your W1 shield still on you, that it will not refresh. So you have to make sure that shield fully expires before you should press W1 again. So if you have to wait, I would wait. Maybe weave in an extra auto attack. But yeah, that's why Aodai is so good on this character. Now, I see some Hisui builds run tack armor. I honestly don't really like tack armor on this character. Reason being is that you already have enough damage to already kill somebody. You don't really need the execute. I do get the armor penetration in the execute is really funny to kill somebody really fast. But I would rather have an item that's good in basically almost all situations than an item that's only good for like straight up blowing up the backline. When your only instance way of getting into the backline is through W2, reliably, I should say. Her next best item, I would say, is Blaster Helmet. This is your Tree of Life item. This item is very, very good on Hisui because of the Echoing Strike. You did additional skill damage to add targets hit with basic attacks, and they bounce. And this also has a really high attack power scaling to it. And Hisui is a character that scales really well with attack power because anything with attack speed will also apply to her attack power. So Hisui will naturally have very high attack power. So hence why Blaster Helmet is really, really good on this character. Another thing to note is that it's also really good with Aodai. The reason why it's so good with Aodai is because the Omni Siphon will apply to the Blaster Helmet Echoing Strike. And the thing is that the Echoing Strike doesn't really count as AoE. You don't actually get the reduced value of Omni Siphon from abilities that have AoE. So each instance of Echoing Strike will fully apply the healing. And because it has such high attack power, when you're farming animals and stuff, you actually get so much healing from like farming animals. That's why I like Blaster Helmet with Aodai. And I think this is like your two biggest power spikes. In this build specifically, I usually, once I get Blaster Helmet and Aodai, I will usually save for Blood and get Blood Ripper. The reason being is because Aurora Longsword and Hermes aren't really that big value. Because this build, you're running Steel Knee Pads and Mono Hajizao. Mono has Omni Siphon to it, and Omni Siphon is really good on Hisui because you're running Blaster Helmet. So Aurora Longsword isn't really that needed. If you get a Meteorite drop, then yes, I would get Aurora Longsword. Or if your guys are like Giga Poor and you need items now, then yes, I would recommend getting Aurora Longsword and then just sacking Blood Ripper for like a Myth Quiver or Auto Arms if you randomly find a 4-score drop. Like these two items are then your next two prioritizations. But yeah, basically my plan is to get Blaster Helmet Aodai online and then save for Blood. That's my plan playing Hisui. Before we go into the replay, let's talk about the difference between Totem, False Oath, and Blink. Now, let's talk about Totem first, because out of the three of them, it is, I believe, the least used out of the three. The reason why Hisui's player runs Totem is because when you are in your R2, you are very vulnerable. So Hisui players will run Totem to get the invulnerability while casting R2 to get the guaranteed damage off, and they stay safe. That's the only reason why they use Totem for. Now this can be really good if you're against a lot of double 80 carry backlines, because what you could do is that if you hit that W2, you can then R2 into Totem, and you'll basically not get a fuck ton of damage while you're casting R2 while doing damage to the 80 carries. And that's the only instance that I realistically see people use Totem for, is to use Giga aggressive plays and then to do R2 into Totem, and hopefully that your team follows up with that. I personally am not really much of a Totem believer, because at the end of the day, you are a brawler, not a diver or an initiator. So I really prefer Blink and False Oath over Totem. The second most used attack skill is Blink. Blink used to be Hisui's go-to before this build came out. Basically, instead of Blood Ripper and Hermes, this build would go Auto Arms and like Blade Boots. So the build was like significantly cheaper. A lot of people would do is that they would just Blink E, but Blink is just a very good like attack skill in general. It's really good for repositioning. It's just in general a really good attack skill to run for like any character, honestly. It's just an insanely good repositioning tool and a good escape tool. And now for the final and most used attack skill for Hisui when this build came out is False Oath. So False Oath has the best synergy with Hisui's kits, and it's all for the same reasons of why Aodai is really good on Hisui. False Oath gives you a lot of healing, and because you have W1, while you're getting shielded, you will also heal. So it's a very good buffer for the healing of False Oath. And while this skill goes on, you slowly gain more damage. So what a lot of Hisui's do is when they're engaging, is that they will ER False Oath to go in. And then you will do your, like, and then you will start brawling, right? Like, do a bunch of your combos and stuff. And then while you're brawling, your False Oath is healing you, it is gaining damage, and it also synergizes really well with Out-Die because of the deferral. So this is kind of like the Triforce of, like, synergies with Hisui. You got Out-Die, you got her kit, and then you got False Oath. This is like the trifecta of, like, Hisui synergy and why people run False Oath on her now. So yeah, that's her itemizations. This is why people run False Oath on her, and the difference between Out-Die and Tack Armor, and why I think Out-Die is just always the way to go, and it's because it's the most consistent item to go on Hisui. Alright, so this is a Hisui game where I went 4th in, but as you can see, I absolutely popped off in terms of damage. And basically the reason why we lost this game was because my 11 wasn't watching timer. And while we were chasing a Haze in red zone, she just exploded. And then it hit day 5, so we had to chase Lumi. And we inevitably ran into a team, which we lost to a 2v3. Goes to the dock, warehouse, and chapel. So what you usually do is you want this loot cluster. This loot cluster is the best for you. Because what you could do is you could loot this, and then you can go over the wall with E, and then you can hit the blast cone here, and then go into the speed gate, and then run all the way over to this loot cluster over here. This is your best loot cluster here. Your second best, it's a matchup between these two. For here, I would usually loot up, and then I wouldn't E until right around here, because I'm behind the wall. And that gives me the extra boost into the fucking blast cone. But if someone's spawning here, they most likely would take the blast cone already. So I go over here to this loot cluster, get all my items here. I will get my katana online, hit level 2. So I can then just one-shot these chickens for the leather. Get these leathers. Now there's 2 ways you can go here. One way is you can go over here. This is the shortest route, is that you can E onto this pole over to this speed gate, and then go over to this loot cluster over here to finish off your build. If you think that people in dock are going straight to chapel, this is the most likely place that they will loot. If that's the case, then you can go over here and take these 2 speed gates and then loot up into chapel here. This way is faster, and this way is if you think that this loot cluster is already looted. So you have 2 options here when playing Hisui. Alright, so I have my build online here. I will probably finish my build around a minute 20. Yeah. So I noticed that because this Eva was following me, I basically get this Eva for free. Now keep in mind, when you are fighting an Eva here, auto attack Q into another auto, and then I wait for a good way to W2 here. A good way to hide your W2 is auto attacking into a W here. Just to get max value of that. Got early kill. Waste the ultimate, because I don't need it. One thing to note, W is, if you're still getting the buff from your W, you will not get the reduction applied on your ultimate. So you see, once this ends, I will get the full cooldown on my ultimate, because my ultimate did not end when I finished off the body. So just keep in mind, that is like one of the biggest downsides of Hisui, is that she's like a little ult-reliant, but like, if the fight ends before your ultimate goes off cooldown, then you'll get the full thing of your ultimate. So I head over to spawn here to get these bears. We know that these players are farming the bears up top. I don't know if we ego enough to chase these guys. Okay, we ego chase these guys. So this is honestly kind of bad for me, because you do not want to chase into a team that's already farming a zone, because all you're doing is you're just getting the scraps. And to be honest, it's more efficient for me to just probably TP somewhere random during nighttime. Like, for example, I would probably, if I saw the ping here, I'd probably just straight up TP into Fire Station, Police Station, because either like the least contested in the night. But I would most likely TP into Police Station, because that's like the path that this team is farming over into. That would be my game plan if I was like not ego chasing like a team here. Anyways, farm these boars. 50 seconds left. About a minute is when you want to look for a place. But these guys chased by 11. I'll just let this fight play out. That was a good E by Kathy. So watch what I do here. I W2 here. And I sit on this blast plant so the Alonso can't hit it. Now, do you notice that I'm not actually using my W2 here? The reason for that is because I was actually looking for this Cathy here. So I W2 to this Raven, parry, because I know that the Cathy is going to try to E me to the Raven. And then I use the wall here to E, and then I W to follow up the blink, and then guarantee the kill. So this is the team that we just fought. This is J-Tang. I need to try to chase J-Tang to get... I'm trying to look for my W2 here, but J-Tang pulls me here. I go chase this, because why not? So there's a Cathy here. I'm just gonna let this play though. So I could have played this a lot better. Honestly, I was trying to greet it and try to get damage on both J-Tang and the Cathy here. But honestly, if the Cathy just res, it would have been better for me to just kill the Cathy with ultimate. It just focus all my resources on killing the Cathy again, because it would not only guarantee me another kill, but it also gives me a dead body to play around for my W1. So I just basically infinitely sustain off of the Cathy. Because there's no way J-Tang can kill me if I have a body to like W1 to shield all the damage from J-Tang. I res here because I have false oath, so I have reliable healing. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, I play the blast cone here because I see that the human eat in, so I just blast cone in, and I get the guaranteed kill. So since we're already here and alpha is spawning, we're gonna play for the alpha. Not before calling in the force core here. We have mage traps here zoning off the players, so we can reliably get my force core, which is my Aodai, which is a big spike for me. Alright, so I am looking for an engage here. My threat here is, since Magnus is on the left side here, my only threat here is the Emma Poly. That's the only threat that I'm looking here. What I'm trying to do here is I'm going to try to parry the Emma Poly if I'm going in here. So I posture onto the backside of this with my back against the dumpster here. So if they do look to trade me, I can just look to go in here. So the human walks up here because he's looking to trade me. So then I E in here because that's enough range for me to get one stack off. And then I parry here. And I do think I successfully... No, I don't. Successfully poly here. That's fine. That was a little messy. But yeah. Basically, I was trying to look for the poly. But yeah. That's how you basically initiate with Hisui. You have to be very aware. Alright. So. 11, William, and Eva. My biggest threat here is this William. Even though Eva has 2 items here, she has 2 force core items, my biggest threat is William. Because Hisui really, really hates ranged DPS auto attackers like William. I don't really care too much about Eva. I can tank a lot of Eva's damage through W1, and because I have Aodai and Pulse Oath, I can tank that reliably. What I'm really watching out for is William here. Like, watch how much damage William does to me with just 1 item while playing Hisui. This also doesn't help that I'm going in, like, just over 50% HP here. So I'm posturing here because the William is probably looking up here because they're focusing my Celine. So he goes up here like this. Probably auto-attacks the Celine once. And then as soon as the William E's here, this is where I E in with ulti. So I instantly posture the parry here because fastball hurts a lot playing Hisui. So watch this. Look how much damage William does to me here. Yeah, that's all from William. But I'm now in a place where I'm inside a bush and I have false oath ticking. So basically what I'm playing for here is if the William does not have any cams and he doesn't cam this bush, I can punish the William here for this because I have W1 here. So I W1 here, then I Q, auto attack W, and that kills the William at half HP. That's just how you can punish like backline players being even like that low. So my next biggest slam is Tree. So what does she? She gets a mithril. I can't really use the mithril here. So what I do instead here is that I immediately go up to Temple and waste timer for this tree. Because Blaster Helmet is just really, really good on me. And I really want to save my credits for Blood Ripper. So I don't mind spending 90% of my timer to get this tree so I can get Blaster Helmet online. Because it's just such a good item. Alright, so this is a rematch. Now keep in mind, my biggest threat is this William here. And now let me show you. This is a perfect example between William and Eva. Now again, Eva has 2 4-score items. William has a Meteorite and a 4-score item. Realistically, Eva should be doing more damage than me and Hisui. But just watch what happens here. So I Q, auto, and W to poke. Basically play to poke with my Celine. So, what I'm doing here, I parry this because this can catch me really hard, so I just parry this. So the William starts hitting me. So I go in here. And basically I'm caught in between 2 carries. I'm prime time to be focused by 2 carries. So what I want to do is I want to try to get away from this William as fast as possible. But this William starts hitting the Celine. So watch what happens when William starts hitting Celine here. He's also smokescreen here, thanks to the Celine bomb. So watch what happens here when I get comboed by Eva. I don't have false hope proccing either because I messed up here. Look at how much I'm tanking off of this Eva. Keep in mind this is also because of this heal plant. This also saved me. Yeah. I'm at 200 HP. This Eva, like, blew all her shit on me, and I'm still, like, pretty healthy. So, let's back up a little bit here. So, you would think I'm in a pretty bad spot here. Because I'm at 250 HP, and this Eva is full HP. Watch what happens when I finally press this false ult button and I get on this Eva finally. Watch this Eva's HP. Max W, hit, auto, Q, Eva's at 50 HP. W, E out of the W, get the W on the 11, W auto, W, Eva's now at 30% HP. Or like 20% HP. Just from W2, auto QW, and then 2 W1s. Just from like a couple ability rotations. Eva's now like giga like low. One thing about Hisui R too is that it is one of the best Wiccaline secures in the entire game. I think it's compared to Yuki, if not a little bit better, and this is a perfect clip to show you why. So, we're walking up to Wiccaline here. Watch how much damage I do to this Wiccaline, by the way. So I ult in, auto, and I instantly R. Wiccaline is at 19,000, 1.9k health. Watch how much damage my R3 does to this. 17, 15. Watch this R3. Executed. Yeah, let's do an outro. If you guys liked the video, please come check me out on Twitch. If you have any questions on any characters, I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. Whether it's any macroing, any microing, any character-specific things that you feel like it's not clicking for you. And yeah, come check me out. Go join the Discord as well. Season 8, I have something planned for the people of ER who want to improve. So if that is something that you are looking into doing, please join the Discord. It does not take much of you for you to like participate. Honestly, all you have to do, well, I'll explain it and see when it comes to Season 8. But yeah, anyways guys, have a good night, and I'll see you